Hello, I'm Maralyn Chase, your state senator from the 32nd Legislative District. 2 weeks ago, I told you about some of the things that I believe had to be part of any budget proposal for our state and its future. On Monday, the Senate passed its version of the budget by a vote of 34 to 13. 11 Republicans voted against it, as did 2 Democrats. I was one of those no votes, and here's why. When we spoke a couple of weeks ago, I told you about the type of budget I hoped to vote for. I had hoped to vote yes on a budget that put working families and small businesses first, and one that put an emphasis on the education of our youngest citizens and the care of our most vulnerable. The budget I was hoping for would put Washington in the black, but not while putting working families in the red. What we voted for on Monday, and quite frankly, what we voted on the last 3 years, is a state budget balanced on the backs of poor and middle class. This is a method that's bad for the present and potentially disastrous for our future, and that is why, in good conscience, I could not vote for it. What do we think the state will look like in 5 years if we pass similar measures year after year? The basic health plan has been stripped down to virtually nothing. And the same can be said about TANF, Children's Health, the Disability Lifeline, and any number of other valuable state services that literally mean the difference between life and death to some of our citizens. And what about education? K-12 students and their teachers are again being asked to do more with less, while higher education students are simply being asked to pay more. This is a slow bleed. Each year, a little more is cut. It is an unsustainable way to run our state. The state has responsibilities to its citizens. As bad as all of this is, my biggest concern about this proposal is what it will do to our most vulnerable citizens. Developmentally disabled citizens have for years lived in safe and secure environments in our state's residential habilitation centers such as Rainier and Fircrest. These are people who have no other options. Many of them need constant supervision and assistance performing the everyday tasks that you and I take for granted. Without this high level of care, these people can be a danger to themselves, to others, and a target of predators. Under this budget plan, however, 2 RHCs are slated to be closed in the near future. The alternative is a frightening proposition, to say the least, particularly for the individuals being evicted from their stable homes. New residential services businesses and the hundreds of individual providers who sell their services to the state in exchange for your tax dollars have an under-trained, high turnover of staff oftentimes, and a generally less secure environment for the developmentally disabled to call home. Those that support this plan do so because they believe it will cost less. It will not. There is a cost shift involved in additional trips to the emergency rooms, costly lawsuits, and law enforcement costs. There is little to no accountability in this DSHS structured privatized system in which your tax dollars are being invested. DSHS transfers your tax dollars from your pockets to their expanding economic sector without the normal checks and balances of the market or of the oversight and supervision present in the state-provided residential services such as Fircrest. In the state facilities, the state is responsible for managing the operations, either poorly or well, depending upon the outcome DSHS wishes to achieve. We all know what it takes to provide a safe environment, and that is good management and well-trained employees who ensure that your tax dollars are actually buying what they were intended for. In private facilities behind closed doors, individuals who are totally dependent and vulnerable have little protection, as we have read in the newspapers. The fact is, many of these businesses fail. And because there is no transparency, we have no way of knowing if these services are actually being delivered. DSHS merely cranks up the printing press for payment of their purchases, with your tax dollars again, without knowing whether or not the services were actually provided. No supervision, no transparency, no accountability, and a huge liability to the state. It's all in the state auditor's reports. As bad as everything seems, there is a glimmer of hope. Last week, I stood with other members of our caucus as we announced a plan to amend the Tim Eyman-backed Initiative 1053, which requires a supermajority to change any aspect of our tax code. Senate Bill 5944 will offer the voters a referendum in November to decide whether or not closing tax loopholes should be counted as raising taxes under 1053. If the voters agree that 1053 should be amended, there are several bills, including many that I sponsored and will sponsor again next session, that will take a hard look at tax loopholes. Many of those expenditures do serve a purpose, but there are many more that have served their purpose and are no longer necessary, but still in effect. If we are allowed to seriously analyze these expenditures, we can begin to work towards a responsible budget, one that supports the needs of all of our citizens, and one that we can all be proud to vote for. That's all for this week. Let me know what you think. As always, please contact me with any questions, comments, or concerns. My information is at the bottom of your screen. Thanks for watching.